Hello viewer, thank you for joining us. This is CBA News in Brief and my name is Yunis Dekow. The current leaders of Somalia and Somaliland have met for the first time in the latest diplomatic effort by Ethiopia's Nobel Peace Prize winning Prime Minister. Somali presidential spokesman Abdinur Mohamed confirmed on Tuesday that a meeting happened, saying it was brokered by Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's capital. He said that it was behind closed doors and no communique is being released. It was an ice-breaking one, the spokesman said. Ethiopia's government has not commented publicly on the talks which occurred on the sidelines of the Africa Union gathering. Somaliland regained its independence from Somalia in 1991 as the country collapsed into a warlord conflict. Despite lacking international recognition, Somaliland has maintained its own currency and security system. Somalia considers Somaliland as part of its territory. Several rounds of past talks over the possible way forward have failed to reach a breakthrough. This week's meeting is the first since Somalia's federal president Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo and Somaliland President Musa Bihi Abdi took office in 2017. Officials from both sides have blamed each other over the failure of their past talks, accusing them of failing to show seriousness. Somaliland leaders have on their hand dismissed allegations and insisted that their sovereignty is non-negotiable. Since taking office in 2018, Ethiopia's leader has worked to achieve a number of diplomatic breakthroughs in the long turbulent Horn of Africa region. Somalia and the United Nations Culture and Education Agency have signed an agreement aimed at strengthening efforts to preserve the country's cultural heritage and improve its education sector. In a statement, Director General of the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization UNESCO, Arwed Aziolo, said culture and education are vital for the country's future. The UN official was speaking at a press encounter in the capital Mogadishu in the wake of signing of a Memorandum of Understanding on UNESCO-Somalia cooperation. The memorandum will enable them to work together on reviving the cultural sector in Somalia and enhancing the country's education policies. The latter includes enrolling school children with a specific focus on young girls, ensuring free and quality primary and secondary education, as well as making available open digital resources including textbooks. Somalia's Federal Minister of Education and Culture, as well as Higher Education, Abdullahi Godax Barre, signed the Memorandum of Understanding on behalf of the federal government of Somalia at the press encounter. He noted Somalia's long history of collaboration with UNESCO and added that the renewal of cooperation will profoundly impact educational culture in the country. Prime Minister of Somalia Hassan Ali Khaire and the UN Secretary General Special Representative for Somalia James Wan witnessed the signing of the memorandum. In addition to the meeting with the Prime Minister during her visit, the UNESCO chief also met with the Minister of Planning, Investment and Economic Development Gamal Hassan and the Minister of Women and Human Rights Development Deqa Yassin. Puntland State of Somalia has dismissed the federal petroleum law in a statement issued on Tuesday. Puntland State said that it will not be involved in the implementation of the petroleum law until clauses violating the constitution and the federalization systems are removed. At Villa Somalia on Saturday, Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo signed the bill, effectively making it a law, despite disgruntles from federal states which have termed it unconstitutional. It is the third time Puntland State has rejected the law which gives the federal government of Somalia powers to supervise and coordinate extraction and exploitation of the country's oil. In the statement, Puntland stated that the natural resource sharing and management to be negotiated and agreed between federal government and federal member states. Puntland has warned all foreign companies against exploring oil and natural resources until the law is agreed by all stakeholders. The Petroleum Act, adopted by the President of the Federal Government of Somalia, is based on the Constitution and the Convention on Ownership, Management and Natural Resources Sharing Agreement signed in Baidoa. Somalia had put halt exploration of natural resources for 3 decades due to civil wars and militant insurgencies, with the nation struggling to constitute a democratically elected administration. But the federal government of Somalia believes exploration of oil could transform the country's economy, besides creating jobs for thousands of educated youth. Troops loyal to Somalia's federal government in Mogadishu are not yet ready to stand on their own against Al-Shabaab militants in the country's south. This is according to a report released by the U.S. Defense Department. Despite some success, the Somali National Army, backed by the African Union and U.S. forces, have made little progress in recent months on Operation Berbera, a joint effort to secure rural areas south of the capital, according to a Pentagon Office of the Inspector General report presented to the Congress on Tuesday, February the 11th. Assessment came ahead of the potential limited drawdown from both the U.S. and AU military forces contributing to the fight against the Al-Qaeda-linked militant group Al-Shabaab, who still control swaths of regions in southern Somalia. It also calls into question the feasibility of the U.S. Africa Command's goal of significantly degrading the militant network's capabilities by 2021, despite a blistering drone strike campaign and American Special Operations Forces assistance on the ground. The 21,000-strong African Union mission in Somalia and some 500 U.S. Special Forces, backed by air support, have sought to continually weaken the militant network until local Somali federal government forces can hold the territory on their own and field governance needs outside the capital. AMISOM is set for another withdrawal of 1,000 troops later this month as part of a long-delayed process of turning over control to Somali troops. U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper has said Pentagon is considering drawing down some of the more than 5,000 troops in Africa in order to focus on countering Russia and China elsewhere. Al-Shabaab has fought to establish an Islamic State in Somalia since 2006. The group was largely rooted from the capital Mogadishu in 2011 by AMISOM, but still controls significant rural areas in the country. The militant, the report says, still retain effective command and control, as evidenced by the fall 2019 synchronized attacks against separate SNA forward operation bases in the lower Shabelle region, a Shabaab stronghold. Though the Somali National Army forces successfully defended their own new post, AFRICOM said they would not have been able to do so without international military support. Moreover, the Somali federal government's lack of control prevents U.S. State Department stabilization aid from reaching areas outside the Somali capital. Washington considers that aid necessary to supplant Al-Shabaab Islamist core, tax system, and charities that fill rural governance needs. A report from Pentagon reads, U.S. AFRICOM reported that there was limited impact on degrading Al-Shabaab outside of the Mogadishu due to slow police force generation and lack of stabilization activities, including local governance within seized towns in the lower Shabelle region. The State Department USAID office recently moved from Nairobi, Kenya to Mogadishu's international airport, but the Somali National Army's inability to effectively hold territory means that USAID implementers cannot provide stabilization programs in areas captured from Al-Shabaab. The USAID agency in Somalia relies on subcontractors who can travel outside of the compound, meet with implementers and beneficiaries, and monitor programming to evaluate the progress of stabilization project. But by May 2020, the report said only one contractor capable of leaving the airport will remain. That is all we have for you on this particular news summary. My name is Yunis Dekow. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.